Welcome everyone, Dr. Thor here. Get ready for Gnosis. Well, I always like to kind of come to a conclusion as best we can on most things and kind of move on. I've done this with many people in different topics, and of course the Hazel Parcell system is something that needs a final comment on. What are the pros and cons of her system? And we have to really keep in mind what's going on. And I'm still working with her baths, and I'll get into that in a minute. And I probably will make one more video here discussing her actual baths and how effective they are. But in the meantime, do you have a question? Do you need guidance? Are you looking for divine inspiration or divine help? Well, the Mystic Pyramid can help. Think of something and let it answer.
The gifts offered to you are well deserved.
Good, some inspiration there. So we do need to look at her system. Now, there seems to be some great interest in it to a degree. There are still a lot of teachers, some teachers out there, there's still that have made a fortune from this, which is kind of ironic because one of the nice things about Parcell's system is that she tried to keep things reasonable. I don't know what her actually courses cost and whatever supplements she sold, etc., what she priced those at, but the people doing it today are charging outrageous amounts of money for it, something that she tried to avoid. I just don't really know what's going on there. She was a terrible administrator. Her nutritional education was from the 20s and 30s. I'm afraid that doesn't really hold any water today. And while there are some basic truths that she discovered, or apparently she discovered, I'm not sure if she found them, or she obviously probably got the research from someone else. The problem with processed aluminum and not using aluminum pans and other things. She was a big fan of not doing that. And we all tend to believe that. And there is apparently research that claims that Alzheimer's and other type people that are afflicted by this have a lot of aluminum in their brain. It's also been called stage 3 diabetes, where they think the fact that it is maybe too much blood, the sugar in the blood that's in the brain that causes dementia, etc. As usual, we can guarantee that our professional medical people are lost. And what's happening now is a resurgence or a forum to actually come out and talk about by semi-credible people or even doctors saying whatever research they read from their little journals are, from the mouth of God. It's perfect. Well, I don't find any of that to be personally true. Now, I've been a researcher for over 50 years. I'm a subtle energy physicist. Part of my training is in energetic healing substances, checking that, etc. So this area is kind of something that I can cover very well and intelligently. But remember, I'm not a medical doctor. I am just a researcher. And of course, your life is very different. One of the problems with anything of today is that it's hard to have a quick fix. You're a bioentity. And why are you having problems, no matter what that may be? There's also things that are left out of the Parcell system, which is typical of old systems that are really fairly poor. And that's covering the fact of the spiritual energetics of things. People aren't uncrossed. If they aren't protecting themselves, if they aren't releasing these negative spiritual energies, then their entire process of healing is going to fail. So, I've mentioned many times that, of course, in Tibetan medicine, and people seem to like the Tibetans, they got pretty robes. The reality of it is that 50% of their medicine is spiritual and 50% is, I guess you could call it, physical, herbals and other things. So that is completely neglected by all modern systems, basically. And while Parcells covered this somewhat, her system, as it is known today, is pretty much a bastardization of what she really taught. And of course, like everything, it's very confusing in its own way, and in a lot of ways is very difficult. As I've mentioned, the best thing about her, she gives you some pointers of how to do things low cost. But are they the best things? I mean, her system was in the 60s, 70s, 80s, into the 90s, not even. We've learned so much. We also know what's going on with people in general now. And there's very confusing diets out there. And quite frankly, her diet recommendations are all wrong. Her nutritional background serves no purpose in this day and age. And we all know what's happening to people in general, as it is reported by others, particularly doctors, of the problems they're having. And of course, basically, Parcells came down to the fact of blaming everything on parasites and getting them out. Now, the teachers that are out there now, the greedy scum they are, ultimately, if you listen to them on their interviews, etc., will tell you that that the parasites are never fully gotten rid of. One teacher says she don't want to hurt them. I don't want to say kill them, while she sits in her mansions. And of course, Parcells turned over her organization to a woman who didn't do a very good job, at least so is not continuing so. She's not setting up new teachers. She's very old. She's very rich, and basically selling supplements and other things for outrageous costs that go with that. So whatever Parcells' system was is really not very valid anymore. So we have to go in and cherry pick from her written material, which can be obtained inexpensively and gives you a lot of tips, especially if you're a beginner. You know, the reason why so many people respond to certain treatments is because they really have no idea what to eat or not. They think that Coca-Cola is a health drink. Pizza is not junk food. These are the type of things I find from a lot of. So when they start taking some basic precautions about what they're eating, maybe even taking some base level supplements, which is another thing I'll cover here, they tend to get some responses. Now, as a professional researcher and a person who's really listening to every single word to try and put the ultimate synergy together, when you work with these people, they're all messed up. Not only are they messed up with their systems, and that means teachers, and the books by Parcells are fairly good little starting procedures. It's a good foundation to a degree, but the bottom line is her diets are all wrong. Her food combining is all wrong. That's really not what's there. To say that a cheeseburger is indigestible is absurdity above. And we can't hold anybody on a high horse and take in what they say as gospel that cannot be challenged. She made a lot of mistakes, and her system is not that great. Now, did she help people? Well, apparently so. I hear this from people, but I also hear out of them that they went to Mexico to get treatments. They used other stuff. They got their own system together. Well, what you're saying to me is that it really didn't work. Or the teachers that say, well, we still got the parasites in there. You can't get rid of them. And we want to talk nice to them and say, hey, let's be buddies. While they sit on a pile of money. And these people are just ripping people off. And I'm sure that Hazel Parcells is turning over in her grave. But she chose these people. And there's a certain lot of bad energy with the people that have followed her system. She's left things to a group of people that seem to be very ignorant, self-centered, and seeking only wealth. A small group of women that seem to be classic problematical in how women operate. And certainly they proved it from their greed, and right up to this day, where the person who took over her system was willed the system by Hazel to a woman, Joan. And I don't know if it matters or not, but there does seem to be some sort of, she was never married. She didn't know. So I don't know what's going on there, but I would suspect, for whatever meaning it is, that she was also gay. But what does that matter? Well, the point is she left it to people that have no business background, have no idea what they're doing, and all they've done from it is make millions. Sad. So, and they're overselling stuff. Some people aren't making the formulas correctly. Apparently, they don't have the energetic reality to it, but they're just jamming cash in their pockets at the expense of the dead bodies. And I would really like to see the percentage of success from this system. Which I think is probably fairly low, regardless of people saying, oh, they saved my husband, they did. Yeah, I'd like to prove that. But the whole idea is we need to understand that because, first of all, you can't even get most of her products unless you want to pay a lot of money for it. And while the books state using a certain supplement, they don't tell you what's in it. And again, it gets into her poor knowledge of supplementation and how the body digests things. To take a capsule with ground up herbs in it is extremely inefficient and almost idiotic. And any person that would study nutrition and who would study how things assimilate in the body would never touch anything that is actually ground up powders. They don't work. They work very poorly. And with the level of being very sick we are today, they are virtually useless. Yet she would tell people to take capsules, and capsules are very popular today because they're easy to make. Stick them in a bottle, super high profits, and to make a tincture is quite a different process. But she never mentioned that because she doesn't know proper nutrition. She doesn't know assimilation. So wherever her system is, certainly lacks a lot of professionality and understanding. She claims to be scientific, and she wasn't. So the whole idea is that all of her food combining stuff is really not important anymore, while it's basically some good information, as well as some other standard things. It's very primitive, and it doesn't really fit with the knowledge that we have today, which we have to use over that. The bottom line is that for the purging of parasites, the system doesn't work. It only works to a level, and certainly you'll get results from that. You will feel better. How much? We don't know. But a lot of people just take regular parasites, tinctures in particular, which you can buy in most places, and have been able to take care of a lot of their own problems. So, and you have to look at your own case, your own thing, consult your medical authorities, figure out what works for you. Everybody is different, and that's one of the problems. But one of the problems is the billion-dollar supplement industry. I think it's $60 billion a year in supplements. Number one that we all care about is our health. And if you have lots of money and you don't live long, well, what's the point? So we have people that are pushing supplements out there consistently, and these things have little to no effect. Now, there are more and more studies that are paid for by supplemental companies and other things, and the bottom line is that all of it doesn't make much sense. I've talked about this with other things, and people don't want to hear anything that's real, but if we don't find out what works and we stay with stuff that doesn't work, we're going to be in the situation we are right now. The miracle cure, garlic, coral calcium, Okinawa lepailong. Well, that's not the simple case there. So the bottom line, if garlic, cayenne pepper, and everything were these miracle cures, nobody would be sick. They're cheap, and everybody knows about them. They don't work. So, and I know from personal experience. Now, if you clean up your diet, if you're basically a healthy person and don't have some intrinsic systematic problems, taking some of these things may assist you. And you should try and take them in a liquid if you can. Of course, you can't take garlic or cayenne pepper in liquids because of the problem there. But the bottom line is that most things you can find a liquid alternative. So all of these things are what we have to look at in the bigger picture. Now, well, she was a nice woman. I think a lot of people liked Hazel, and I think that's one reason why people like her system. How effective it all is still really up for debate. I mean, she didn't leave things, or what she taught in her classes were very different than what's in her books. You had to go to classes, and she would talk about other things like radionics and other things. Well, why do you need to have 50 systems then? If radionics is so effective, why are you using supplements? Why are you giving people an oxygenator that is a semi-poison? So the whole idea is that what is all that about? OXO is an oxygenator, and like so many oxygenators, you're not really supposed to take them. Just like hydrogen peroxide and everything else, which people are taking constantly, and I don't recommend things one way or another. You got to figure out what works for you. And as I said, I'm talking about my personal experience, my personal understanding as an advanced researcher, particularly in the health area for over 50 years now, coming from a sick family and being relatively sick myself, and working with these things and now monitoring problems to see exactly what happens. Now, if you have systematic problems and you improve them, you should see things like if your blood sugar go down, you should see your blood pressure go down. There's lots of ways that you can find out if things are working for you. If those are not happening, it means whatever you're taking is not working. So now, if, as I said, depending on your level of health, a lot of people are just living on crap, and when they start exercising a little, losing weight, and eating right, oh, it's a miracle. And we've already found that out in general, as the statistics tell us, that people are all very overweight. They basically, quote, cure themselves by the miracle process, by that amazing supplement that everybody can easily get, and it's free. It's called weight loss. When people lose weight, about 80% of the symptoms that people have and conditions tend to go away because your body just can't handle that obnoxious weight. And all of your numbers tend to improve. So if you have blood pressure problems or sugar problems and you do something, you should see immediate results to that. Or any other systematic problem. So if, including the baths, if they work so well, these numbers should start to go down and should go down fairly rapidly. So the whole idea is that we have to understand that. So the fact that her nutritional background, and I said this even in my initial lectures, is dated. It's very dated. Her processes are very dated. A lot of statements she makes are just plain ridiculous. That doesn't. You don't take arsenic out of water by shining ultraviolet light on it. It's a poison. It's not going to work. So the whole light, and that's what sunlight is. Sunlight is nothing more than ultraviolet light. If you want to put some energetics into it, that's still not going to clear poisons out of water. So lots of polluted rivers and lakes have sun on them for huge amounts of times of the day. It doesn't work. So we got to understand, that's just absurd. Now, does it take pure water and energize it? Well, I took her suggestion there and did put an ultraviolet light over my, and full spectrum light as they call them, over my water, which I had crystals in and everything else. But my water is pure because I distill it. And distilled water tends to have less energy, but it also has no junk in it. And water is not the amazing thing you think it is. So we all have to understand that your body is sewer water, basically. It's not pure water. You're not filling up some sort of container that water is used up, or the radiator in your car that needs, and the whole idea is that's just not true. So energetic water, which people have been screaming about, and bogus people like Flanagan have been making their crap bottles for $40 with little drops you put in water, and supposed to do something, which again I've used for over 10 years with zero results. So the whole idea is we need to understand that, and I don't know anybody who can point to those things helping them ultimately. Patrick Flanagan and his water stuff was a joke. Another person who we have to be very careful of, and I don't know their sincerity level or not, thinking that the Hunza people were living long from water because it was highly mineralized. It's certainly interesting, but I can't even find anything on that anymore after he wrote his book and sells his drops. The bottom line is they seem to go on a 30-day fast and eat nothing but apricots, pure organic apricots that are loaded with minerals and particularly vitamin A. So this could be a very high purifying diet, which keeps them alive. So how the water is there, well, I'm very dubious of this water stuff perpetrated pretty much by Perrier in the 1970s to get people to drink their carbonated crap at a super high price. And, that's what life is all about. You have to figure out the marketing over it. Now, and the problems is people who wrote the book on Hazel Parcells stuff were uneducated people that knew nothing of that area. So, when you discuss something with somebody, you need to get an authority in that field who can ask proper questions, things that they have researched and know is right and wrong, and find out what the truth of it is, and not slavishly follow somebody like they're a great queen. That's just the reality of it. So we do have to understand the success rate, the problems with getting rid of parasites that could be in every single organ, and how do you get rid of these? What are the processes? Well, her processes are pretty bad, and her problem with getting clearing the liver using a poison is also a problem. So the whole idea is these are things that we have to be very careful of. And are there better ways that are we doing things now? Her use of Clorox bleach, which has been used for many, many years. I don't know if she was the only one if she discovered that or not, but I frankly doubt it. It must be coming. That's an old treatment. It's just an oxygenator, and there are many of these today. Hydrogen peroxide, what is it? I always forget that, which are people are using, which is basically pool shock that they make into a liquid to purify water, and people take it as well. These are the type of things to oxygenate your body that have given people great results. They also generate a lot of free radicals and all the things that we can go with that. But there's also a lot of problems with her systems in general, and the fact that she kept people who are healthy or in general as a long-term diet of eating animals is absurd. So it shows a lack of her consciousness there, even though there's talk that she stated that she would remove their terrible energies from the meat. Yeah, why don't we remove using the meat? Genius nutritionist. Why don't you figure out ways to do that? But she missed all that. Her fasts and her diets have pure fructose in it by large amounts, otherwise known as apple juice, which is nutritionally empty, has nothing in it. Tastes pretty good. I like it. But it's all fructose. And she thinks that when you're on a diet, you should pour a glass of fructose down your throat, including the fructose-laden grapefruit juice, which a lot of people have problems because of certain minerals in grapefruit juice that have upset people. And people have even died from drinking grapefruit juice because of a systematic problem. Again, giant errors. Shows you that this person did not pick up on the fructose problem, did not see it as a problem whatsoever. And of course, this is it. People think fruit is good for you. The bottom line is fruit generally isn't good for you. It has small amounts of nutrients with a lot of fructose in it, depending on how you use it. But it's certainly a relatively healthy person can eat fructose, sugar, candy bars, and other things in small amounts and not have a problem because your body will deal with it. People who are sick, and that's who we're talking about here, people that have health problems of any amount cannot eat any of that stuff because 65% of the population now has fatty livers. These fatty livers were unknown in her time. People only got fatty livers in her time from alcoholism. That's how people got fatty livers, because the alcohol can only be processed in the liver. And as such, if the liver is overwhelmed by having alcohol poured into it all the time, it turns it to fat, as only fructose can be digested by the liver. So when it can't handle it, it turns it into fat. And then what happens? Fatty liver, which eventually is maybe the cause of almost all of the other problems out there. So some medical people believe. And again, this is my own personal opinion as a researcher. And nothing more. So it's as simple as that. So the whole idea is that, but all that I'm stating has been gotten from legitimate sources. Many of them claim to be MDs, and of course claim to make lots of money off of YouTube because they state things that I feel are wrong, and they're doctors, but they're making money. And they're quoting tests that we don't know how good they are or not. So basically, her nutritional understanding was terrible. She didn't figure out a lot of things. She certainly didn't figure out what were superfoods. She didn't talk about so many things that could help people. And definitely, drinking apple juice is insane. There's nothing in it, and it's nothing but fructose. This is part of her fast. Now, maybe she wanted, as part of her fast, to pump sugar in you, but it's a very bad way to do it. And so is grapefruit juice, as I've just mentioned. And a lot of her other things, her food combining stuff, is, it's in the ballpark, but there's a lot of wrong there. Her cleaning of food is pretty much absurd. So the whole idea is that you, by putting meats into a Clorox solution and claiming the energy comes up, that you've brought up the energy of dead flesh with negative energies in it, is absurd. What you're picking up from any of that stuff is you're picking up the oxygenation energy. And when you oxygenate something, it has more energy. Does it enter the flesh? Does it make that? No, it doesn't. Does it kick out anything? No, it doesn't. What it does, it will kill some bacteria that's on the outside of the meat. So that you have. But when you cook meat, you're going to do that anyway. So the fact of putting it in a chemical is unbelievable. And since, of course, that's what the Americans have been doing for years, and what the Europeans have what didn't want to put to wash chickens and poultry in bleach, which is what they object to and will not import American produce or any meat because it's washed in, guess what, Clorox. So the whole idea is this is the kind of problem that people run into, and you can think whether that's good or bad. Now, you're not going to energize anything very much by putting it in an oxygen, particularly something that's dead. You're not going to energize anything that's dead, plain and simple. Now, if you put an oxygenated fluid or soak vegetables, which are still kind of alive, they're going to take in some of that energy, and it's going to bring up the energy of that. Now, that will kill, of course, bacterias on there. Will not remove the actual if there's toxins on there, pesticide removals, etc. All of this, putting it in oxygen is not going to do that. So you have to clean them first, and there are new methods using ionization similar to what you use to clean jewelry, and you can put your fruit in it, but that doesn't energize it. It will remove whatever's on the fruit, and then you can then energize it, and will give it a certain boost in energy by doing that, because those are live. Eggs, you're not going to pull out any parasites by doing that, and you're going to get a minor boost in energy. I don't know if you can call eggs alive or not, but when you test them and they come out a little better, the bottom line is that's just picking up the oxygen. And that oxygen, yes, gives a better energetic field. How long it hangs around or not is unknown. She seemed to have been marveled at the fact that putting lemons that were pretty much because of bacteria were going bad, and soaking them in there, and that they kind of came back to life, was a miracle to her that she learned way after school. So again, really bad training, and that was so amazing. And I don't believe the stories that actually stayed for months and months. Lemons, which are high acidic, again, have a natural preservative because those bacteria that build up, the acids kill. So all of this is kind of bogus, and I'm not sure what all of that's about. It sounds like more fairy tales to me, and I'm not very happy with that. And so bringing up energy of something that way. Now, these are all very primitive ways of doing things. There are many tools out there that have ways to bring up the energetic factors of food and everything else. And we're coming out with lots of these things because they're so needed. And you have to do it in a simple, easy way. But she was very much involved in using radionics as well, supposedly. But none of the people that have taken over her know anything about radionics. They're boobs. They use junk machines produced by negative, evil people. And when they're told that, I look for the good things in people. This is what one little bozo woman said. So the whole idea is that they have no problem using toxic, super expensive crap made by jerks, and also seem to be connected to government agents that are ruining radionics to the next level as well. This is the kind of crap that's out there, people. And if you deal with these people, they will rob you and leave you with nothing. So be very, very careful of what's out there. And of course, you have to always look at all systems and take the good and bad out of it. So the whole idea is her system with that, which you have to get herbs that you can't get, are too expensive. You have to get a toxic chemical. Who's going to get that system? Her system is very limited. The fact is there are no proper systems that are set up. It's very complicated to work quote, radionically. These things are still in great misunderstanding of how all this works. People are still using, again, outdated technologies from people that we know it failed with, like the Hieronymus builders whose wives died of cancer, or the SE5 people whose top teacher died of cancer. Does that mean it works? No, that means it doesn't work. So people have to wake up and they have to find proper guidance and go with people and organizations that know what they're talking about, not these crooks. So we have to keep that in mind. So the whole pros and cons of our system get to be very complicated. Now, as I said, if you're starting from the ground up, these are good little books to kind of steer you in the right direction. But the bottom line is that the new diets, the new information that you can find from doctors online and YouTube, etc., are not the diets that she's stating. Those are diets basically for healthy people. People that have fatty livers and everything else seem to get fantastic. And we don't know right now, but the keto and the carnivorous diets seem to have people lose a bunch of weight. They get rid of their fatty liver and they feel great. Now, that's what we're finding out as of right now. So her diet and the fact that cheese and meat don't mix together, which is what carnivore tells you to mix, as well as eggs, majorly contradicts her, and I believe the modern stuff is much better. I mean, she is, the only thing that the Parcells system has going for itself is that she lived to be 106, claimed to be super sick, basically coming back from death's door, hanging on to the cliff of death, and was somehow able to pull herself up, eating nothing but spinach. And of course, that's not her diet that she recommends either. So it went from this kind of fairy tale, and I'm not sure whether to believe it or not, into this system that a lot of people followed and found interesting. But the point is that when you get into her different things, she has a unique color system of projection that's been around for a long time, and I can't really verify whether it works all that well. People claim they do, but show me. I'm from the show me people. I come from the researchers. Show me. Let's see it happen, because I don't see it happening with much, and I'm a little sick and tired of a bunch of people making claims that cayenne pepper is going to knock your blood sugar down, garlic. Be careful, because if you're taking medications and you take that, you're going to go into hypoglycemia, which means low blood sugar. Really? Come on. This is the absurdity of absurdities. Perpetrated by the herbal companies that sell you this stuff, usually at a fantastically high price. So the whole idea is that she had a system and she didn't tincture her products because it was too much work. We don't know we do know. I have her herbal formulas, which are nothing overly impressive. There's her formulas to these things. I mean, they're standard anti-parasites. Now, the bottom line is that what does all that mean? So I don't know, but taking powdered herbs, as I've stated, is just throwing your money down the tube. It doesn't work. The whole idea is that there does seem to be no system. There is no system of using, quote, subtle energy type machines or radioactive machines that seem to do much value here. If it did, why did she bother with all the other things? Energizing your food. Well, you can do a little of that with fruits and vegetables. By using oxygenating supplements and oxygenating substances. Most likely the best way to do that is to buy an ozonator that you can put in the water and then ozonate the item, so you don't have to buy chemicals and lug around gallon jugs of stuff. So that certainly would do, but you can also clean your food as well. But to think that you're going to get parasites out of meat that from sitting them in chemicals is highly unlikely, unless they're so full of parasites that they're so close to the top that they're going to come out. This can happen with certain things like fish, because fish are loaded. Fish is the sewer of the world, the oceans, and you should stay away from anything that comes out of there. There's nothing there of value. But the bottom line is that even if you're able to get 95% of the parasites by soaking them out of the meat or fish, that's not enough. 5% is okay. You like 5% of parasites to suck your brain? Not me. So the bottom line is you have to cook everything, and you have to cook it well and thoroughly. This can be done easily and efficiently in this day and age, particularly with hot air ovens that are fantastic. I use one every day. They cook really well. The insides of the meats and everything are super, super cooked. And if you want to get neurotic about it, you can actually test to see how hot it is inside and was it hot enough to kill parasites. So that's the only effective way of doing it. Again, this is kind of bad science that she wants to do that. But the whole idea is it wasn't really about getting parasites out. It was mostly about energizing the food with oxygen, which she thought was a miracle. Well, energized food with oxygen and other things is only going to bring a very small energy back to foods that are pretty bad. So it's not really going to do much energetically. You have to do a lot more. And maybe it worked in the 80s. It's not working now. It's not going to work now. People are much sicker. You have to get rid of that fatty liver. You cannot eat any kind of carbs if you're having serious problems. Now, if you're well, you can vary your diet a little more, see what happens. But remember, you are going to have certain problems as understood as a general understanding of diets, that if you're going to be eating stuff that is bad, sure, you feel okay now, but does that mean in the future? If you're eating beer and pizza, super carbs, this is why that's a beer belly. Beer belly is all that fat that your liver is kicking off and your pancreas that is now settling around your stomach, to put it in kind of a crude, simplistic fashion. So this is the kind of things that are happening out there that we all have to watch. And of course, she's missing all of this and didn't talk at all about fructose. And fructose is bad for you because of the way the body assimilates it, as doctors will tell you. And of course, like anything, consult your doctor, find out what all of this, get some education, etc. The point is, going with a system that's that old is a serious problem. Now, what are the techniques there? Now, the bottom line, if you want to buy powdered herbal capsules crap that don't work, well, it's hard to even find this stuff, but you'll probably get them at a very high price from people that are very wealthy from the dead bodies that they have assisted into the ground. So the whole idea is then there's other things that are difficult to get as well. What are these oxygenators that are chemicals? How well can you handle them as a sick person? We just don't know. There's all sorts of problems with those things where you have to do extreme cleansings and everything else. Nobody's going to do that. So there's a potential huge problem there if your body detoxifies and throws out a lot of waste and you don't get it out of you. So it's a complicated system. The whole idea of using any kind of instrumentation at this point that seems to be effective in those particular areas at a high level is still in great question. There's certainly a fascinating area to look at, and there certainly are amazing stories again. But everyone I've known that has used that stuff has been unsuccessful with getting deep down. They follow up with other things, other procedures, and don't seem to have been able to really do anything in the long run. And all these people that want to sell you a bunch of super expensive technologies, well, it's worth a try if you have credible technology, and they're not credible. These people are just ripping you off, and there's nothing to back them up. And they even are in organizations that back up government agents and people who sell you crap. So it's just the way it is because there's no credibility anywhere. And certainly there's no intelligence. People know nothing about subtle energy physics type machines, how it works, or anything else. They want to digitalize everything. This is the lowest level of stupidity you can get into. And these are all the things that go out there in this entire field. So the whole idea is that we need to fully understand that as a reality of what's going on in this field. Now, the point, plain and simple, is her training was really ancient. Now, she certainly did supposedly modify stuff, and I don't know what her success rate or not. As I have a friend who studied with her, but ultimately he went to Mexico. He did so many other things. None of her stuff directly worked. So I don't know what it is. People are very gullible, looking for fantasy solutions and think something happens when it really doesn't when you listen to people. It's a great system, but the worms are still always left there. That's what the top teachers will tell you. And of course, that's even what my friend found out, because none of that stuff got rid of the actual deep parasites throughout the body. And this is a difficult process, and a lot of things have to be used that are not being used. But, you know, the crude system may brush away a lot of these, could brush away 70, 80%. And of course, you're going to feel better from that. How do you get all these things out of there? And the ignoring of viruses and funguses, which I don't recall seeing any of that in her teaching either, are all the weakness of this system. And it's something we have to be careful of. So the whole idea is that it's a very okay system. It's outdated. You have to do a lot of things differently. But if you're coming from nowhere, you can get this book on Kindle Unlimited virtually for free. It's $10 a month, and you can read as many books as you want. I do recommend that. Get some education. Plain and simple. There's 2 books that are out there, but these are far from the greatest health books out there. And what is? Well, the greatest health book out there is The System That Works for You. And you're going to have to find